Let me tell you about this week's lessons. You're making a bunch of different functions in a tool. Half your assignment is going to be on Replit, half your assignment is going to be on this tool called Coding Bat. So for those that have taken Mr. Simon before in his computer science A class, this is the same exact tool that he uses. It used to be just called JavaBat. It's made by this Stanford lecturer down in Palo Alto. He made this tool. I used it when I took his class with when I took the class with Mr. Simon, and now it's since then evolved. So make sure that you click on the Python tab when you sign on here. Make an account. The important part to emphasize is making sure that I can see your progress. So when you sign in the upper right-hand corners, there's PREFS. That stands for preferences. Make sure you share to my email address, which is chanr@sfusd.edu, and I'll give you a couple seconds to sign that in. Okay? Making an account is a very basic website, but it gets the job done. It auto grades your assignments. That's nice. Replit can do that too, and I'll make use of that later in the semester. But this is the most easiest way for me to get some content out for you to do. Yes. So if you type in the wrong email, just type in like this again. I'm sure it'll be fine. Right, I am not a student, I'm a teacher, so make sure you have that correct.
There's some art chance student out there.
That now has it. So I'll write it on the board, Chan, CHANR at SFUSD, not S.SFUSD.
Okay.
Okay, so make sure you have that, and your goal is to complete half of the assignments from the assigned topic. So under Python, it's warm-up 1, over here, warm up 1, those are simple exercises, and then logic 1. Logic 1 uses if else, else if, and then warm up 1 just has you pay attention to some new things about Python. If you need help getting started, you can click on these links down here. I will talk about each of these topics, maybe lists, this week. So feel free to do your own self-study. These things are useful. And like, let's say you're here, and then you just type return 1, you click go, and then it runs your code. See, with the code that was built in, I passed maybe half the test. And your goal is to get all green here. Cool? If you take computer science A next year, this tool you use a lot. Java, it was originally this, has a lot more exercises. Python is being built up, and sometimes you'll see me make my own exercises, but it takes a while. Okay, that's 2 out of your 4 points. And then the other ones I'll talk about, it's from your interactive Python textbook thing. They're shorter programs, but you'll code those from scratch on Replit. Okay, 2 of these, 2 out of these 4 prompts, there's extra credits and there's super extra credits. If you want to, for those in Algebra 2, think back to last year, you learned determinants and matrices. You can implement Cramer's rule for 3x3s in Python. And maybe do that in your calculator too. So kind of mathy, kind of not. And that's this week's assignment titled Simple Functions. Cool? If you have questions, please comment under the somewhere in your reflections. I'll clarify this. I had to edit this prompt from last year, so I'm sure there's typos and things that I did wrong. Okay. Then let me tell you some things about the Python language. I'm going to open a Replit, and I'll be telling you about variables. We'll define some more functions. And maybe we'll get to strings, probably not today because it's a short class. So from this point on, when you make a new Replit, you no longer need to click Python with turtle. We're just going to pick Python and then name our Replit. This is week 1, variables, expressions, and functions. Okay, those are the ideas I'll be talking about today. I'll share this code afterwards so you can see it and follow along. Notice now we're in Python 3. Python 2 is, however much I like it, is no longer, shouldn't be supported. So everything is on to version 3 now. And what I want you to pay attention to on this side is, over here is where you'll put your code, Maybe I'll dim the light slightly so you can see it better. Okay, that's the left-hand side. Any code you write there should be saved by Replit. Every couple seconds, most of your work should be saved. And then on the right-hand side, that's what we call the interactive terminal function. Okay, Python does some cool things over there. I'll go between the two today. Okay, so over here, this is called the interactive interpreter, where you put your code. And then over here, the right hand side is called the interactive interpreter. Interpreter, okay, whatever. So this thing's nice. You can write code onto the right-hand side and it'll be evaluated immediately. Python is called a scripting language, okay? Notice you don't have to compile it or run it like you did in JavaScript or in Java or like in C++. It just runs as is. Let's see. So you can do things on this side like x equals 3, right? And then it remembers what's x. X is 3. You can test out certain lines, and it's a great tool, an interactive code line for you to interact with. Over here, let's type in our first function. So as a reminder, for those that had me last year, we're going to write a max function. This function finds the maximum of 2 integers, right? And we'll do so in JavaScript, and Java is not too far from this. If you're given 2 integers like that, x and y, notice these are the first 2 arguments. These are numbers that are passed into the function. Here's your basic if statement. If x is greater than y, well, then we tell the function, okay, we're going to return x, right? We tell the function, okay, x is the bigger one. Otherwise, it's going to be up the other way, okay? This is going to represent y is bigger than or equal to x. We're going to tell it, okay, which is the bigger number? Y must be the bigger number. That's what it would look like in JavaScript. In Python, we're going to implement that same function down here, okay? This is in JavaScript. That's what we're used to. And let me show you the differences in Python script. So down here, instead of function, we now write def. And then max x and y, that part stays the same. Instead of having a squiggly brace, we now have a colon. For these subsequent lines, they remain largely the same, but what you need to pay attention to is the indentation. Indentation really matters. Okay, like so, like so. We still have the return keyword, and I'll tell you more about that. For if statements, notice in JavaScript we would have included something like this down here, but instead we put another colon. We don't need semicolons out here. And then down here for the else, we need another colon, and then we have return y. This is what the maximum function now looks like. If you had other lines of code, all you would do is make sure the indenting is right. That's how Python knows, like this belongs with the first if block. And now if we click run, it'll do its thing, it runs, and we don't see anything on the right-hand side. All this has done is tell Python, hey, the max function exists. Now we can figure out if it works. Max of, let's say, 3 and 4, right? And then it should give us 4. Great. Let's see what happens. Max of 3 and 3 gives us 3. Max of negative bajillion, whatever that is, right? Let me delete that y that's there. It still should work regardless. And then you move back way over here. So you just ran your code, you told Python it exists, and maybe 9, right? Should give me 9. All right, great. That's our first function in Python. Picks up where we left off last week. Some other things you should know that are different. Let's say you wanted to add 2 integers, right? Down here, adding looks the same, right? Let's do like 6 plus 5. So if you put a line of code on the left-hand side in your code, after you run this, you'll actually see like 6 plus 5 is 11. Nope, we don't. So if you type 6 plus 5 over here, it computes that. If you do something special with it, like store it into a variable, like temp equals 6 plus 5, I've declared a variable and I've initialized it, then you can ask Python after you click run, what's temp? It tells you 11. Great. What's different? You can override variables. Let's do 6 minus 5 over here. Temp again is division or multiplication works the same. 3 times 5, division looks like 5 divided by 3. Okay, and then I think exponentiation is different. You have to use star star, and that does 8. Notice if you did this symbol, like the little caret shift 6, and did 3, that thing gives you 1. I think that's the XOR operator, which we don't talk about, but be careful there. I might put that as a quiz question. Star star represents exponentiation in case you need it. this caret is not what we use for exponentiation. Okay, and then temp equals 2 star star 3. And then maybe, like a practice quiz question, what is the value of temp when I run the code segment below, right? Each time, because these names are the same, it gets overwritten. Python saves over it. So at first it was 11, then it was 1, then it was 15. Down here it was 1 and 2/3. And then down here, the last value, if we click and run this code, we should see, when we type in temp, that there's your answer. It's 8. The last thing is what happened. So careful with these names. Additionally, last year, we talked about incrementing. So this line looks weird to beginning coders, but this increments temp by 1. If I click run over here, what do you think is in the value of temp? 9. You just add one more, and we can check. Temp is 9. The other ways to represent this, plus equals 1. Okay, that's just shorthand. These two are equivalent. Another way to represent this, to increment. Okay, so now if I added 2 times after 8, what do you think the value of temp is? Yeah, it's 10. Okay, notice it doesn't always have to be 1 here. You can do temp plus equals like 4, and now what do you think happened to temp?
14.
Yep. Ta-da. Ooh, right? So just shortcuts you can take. Plus equals is the same as this. What else do you need? So we can do comparisons. Maybe I'll just demonstrate it on an interactive console. Is 3 equals to 4? False. Not equals looks like this. Not equals 4. Think about that. Is 3 not equal to 4? Yes. So that means it's true. Less than, greater than works the same as in JavaScript and in Java. Is this going to be true or false? 3 greater than equal sign 4. False, right? So in case you need that for your various logic assignments, on my slide deck I posted 2 different practice quiz questions. Here are some basics you should know. And let's create another kind of function. We'll define it straight in Python. And maybe let me tell you about this function first, so maybe you want to code it yourselves or think about what you would do. So this function is going to be called countup. What it does is when I pass it, for example, if I run my code, countup. Shut up. Be mature. It might be hard, right? So if I count up like 4, for example, it's going to start at 1. It's going to show you 1. Then it's going to show you 2, then it's going to show you 3, then it's going to show you 4. Okay, it counts up to this certain number and then stops. What do you think the code will look like? Well, we're going to use other useful tool called a loop. Well, let's see, do we want to make a for loop? Yeah, we'll go over the for loop because I introduced this last week with Turtle. Okay, so def count up. Okay, it's going to take in a number. Let's call it num. Remember, you need a colon afterwards, not a single bracket. And then it auto-indents for you. This is where we begin the body of our code. For I in range 1 to num. Okay. Colon. And previously, we would have done like what? Console.log. If you're in JavaScript, right, console.log would be our show to the screen. If you were in Java, it was like what? The classic system.out.println, right? That's what you would use, something like that. What's nice in Python is just one word, print. Okay, we're going to print that number I to the screen. That's all. Wait, I need to have parentheses, I think. So let's see if that was correctly done. So when I run my code, it now recognizes the max function. It does a couple things. Temp should be still 14, and then I can use count up now. Let's see if I count up to 4, whether or not it produces the right things. Traceback, standard in, count is not defined. Oops, it's count up. Silly Mr. Chan. Underscore up. Okay, 1, 2, 3, darn it. I'm short. You should notice some things about the range function. The range function doesn't include the last number that is there, right? This is the code that would have been here. It's exclusive. It doesn't include that last one. Sorry, I did a space. Range 1, 2, 4. go. I spell it wrong? Weird. So it should be num plus 1, right? If I save and run this code, and then count underscore up to 4, now it works properly, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to code this up another way. Perhaps if you were with me last semester, this way is more familiar. I didn't really talk about count up 2. This is going to be done with a while loop. Hello, Cousin Cheng. How are you doing? Yes, this is the boring part of my lecture. I'm coding in real time, okay? So we're going to use the while loop. It's going to be a little bit longer than what you're used to in a for loop, okay? You'll have to define an integer, I equals something. Notice you don't need var, you don't need anything. We're going to start it at 1, okay? And then while I is going to be less than num plus 1. Or you can do less than equal to num, your choice, colon, print I. Print it first, then you increment it, right? So maybe I plus equals 1, like so. That should be our program. And maybe instead of typing it over there, we're going to do count up over here, count up to 4. And we should see the same exact outputs. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. We can make it maybe nastier. Go count up the 40 program. Ta-da, ta-da. And we'll scroll up. Ah, there it is. So there's my output. The important part you should know from here that the range function, I don't know why it doesn't show me when I type it onto here, range like 1 to 2. It just gives me range 1 to 2. I'm unsure. It should give me a list. Liam.
We defined num, right?
Ah, so great question. Like, what's happening with num? Num is what we call it's formally called an argument, right?
Okay.
And then when we use it, like here, it takes on a parameter of 40. So it exists temporarily inside the function. That's where I declared it, but it's a temporary variable. Only exists inside count up to and the count up functions. Right? So if I ask for like num, it's going to tell me it doesn't exist. It says standard in num is not defined. Because once your function's done running, it goes away. And if you want to look at the specifics of that, it's like how the stack works in Python. And not Stack Overflow, right? They're different environments of stuff. And then you'll notice a difference, right? Previously, I used the max function. Notice max uses return, okay, the return keyword, versus these two functions, count up, they use print. So there's a subtle difference there, okay? Return is the keyword that tells a function you need to report back this value, right? So if I do something like this, like x equals count up to. Actually, let's start with the easier one. X equals the max of, let's say, 9 and 10. Right? What do you think is in x? What's the bigger number of 9 and 10? 10. So if I check what's x, it's 10. But now if you do y equals count up, let's see, count up to 4. What do you think is, oh shoot, yeah, what do you think is going to be the value of y? We can check. It's weird. See, it gives you nothing, right? Because nothing is returned from this function. It didn't report back any value. Sorry, I'll fix the screen. I noticed it's all the way at the bottom. I'll move it up a bit. I'm still adjusting to this room. So that's what I just entered, right? Count up was only job was to display text to the screen. It didn't store anything, so y has no value. That's why you see blank. Versus before, x equals max, it actually reported something back. Why? Because it used the return keyword, not the print keyword. Okay, so some subtle differences there. Often in your coding bat problems, you'll have to use the return keyword, not the print keyword, in order to get those working. Okay, print just shows values of variables at chosen locations, while print statements, return values report something back. You can define functions in here on the left-hand side, but they go away. Maybe we'll just do a short one. Times 5, right? This function's job is to multiply the number that we input by 5. Notice you have these 3 dots. On the interactive interpreter side, that's how you do multi-line like stuff. Okay, num. Indentation error, expected indented block. Okay, one more time. Times 5 num. How about this? Return 5 times num. That's better. And then you press enter again. Now you can use this function, times underscore 5. 3 times 5, it's 15. Now we can store that in y. Okay. So far so good. Nothing too fantastic or new, but just how Python does things. And so, as an exercise, and I'll leave this with you for the end of today, make an exponent function. Okay? And I'll review how to do this tomorrow. You have a base, that is your input, and then you have the exponent. Okay? So then if you do, let's say something that looks like, exp of exp of 2 and 3, you should get 8. Right? Your output should be 8. Try not to use star star, right? Use a loop, right? Use repeated multiplication as a quick practice. I've talked at you a lot. I'm going to stop now. This will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. There's about 3 minutes left of class.